Hi there, Keith here with another video blog. Today I'll be reviewing technology, and specifically the iPhone 5. Now normally I review movies or TV shows or things of that nature, but today we're going to do it a little different as everything seems to be consumed with the iPhone 5 these days. I know over the past few weeks I've been very excited about this new device. Now, I've got to say that I really like Apple's advertising. To me they promote about as well as Vince McMahon does, and they probably got lessons from old Vince. You think about it. They have their developers conference back in June where they talk about software. They just talk about the software that's going to be coming out for the phone. Well, this sends people in a frenzy, and the next thing you know, all these websites are speculating on when the iPhone 5 is going to be released, and everybody's all excited about the arrival of this phone. Truth be told, I think people were probably looking forward to the arrival of the iPhone 5 after the release of the iPhone 4S. It seems that we're never satisfied. We're always excited to see what the next device is going to bring. And I'm probably as guilty of that as anybody else. Now, I'm going to get into the iPhone 5 and my personal review of it, but before I do, I know there's a lot of people thinking right now, well, I've got a 4, I've got a 4S or a 3GS, should I upgrade? Well, if you've got a 3GS, absolutely you should upgrade. But if you've got a 4 or a 4S, this is my thoughts. My personal opinion is that you should update every 2 devices. So, I had an iPhone 4 that I was using up until yesterday, and the reason that I upgraded to the 5 as opposed to the 4S is as follows. When the 4S came out, if you've seen the 4 and the 4S side by side, you would know they're visually the exact same phone. The significant differences between the 4 and the 4S were the 4 has a 5 megapixel camera and the 4S has an 8 megapixel camera. Quite frankly, unless you're blowing these pictures up in a poster size, it doesn't really matter. They're both fantastic cameras. The other big difference was the fact that the 4S had Siri. Now Siri looked like a really great program. Here was a program that was going to talk to you, it was going to send your texts, send your emails. You'd be able to say, hey, I want a Big Mac, and it would tell you where the nearest McDonald's is. The problem is when the 4S launched, that whole search capability didn't work in Canada. So it kind of made Siri a half-assed product here in Canada. Sure, there were apps that you could get, but it wasn't really the same thing. So I decided to sit out the 4S party. Well, I'm back in stride now with the 5, and I've got to say I really like this phone. I've had a few hours to test it, got it yesterday in the mail. Well, interesting story about that, I originally planned to line up outside of an Apple store for it. I had it all planned out. I was going to show up at the Rideau Center here in Ottawa around 3 p.m. on the Thursday, September the 20th, and I was going to camp out. I was going to have certain friends cycle through the night and kind of keep me company and play around with my iPad and watch a few movies. It was going to be awesome. But then when I found out that the iPhone wasn't going to be sold unlocked at the Apple store, I traded in my sleeping bag for sitting in front of my computer at 3 o'clock in the morning so I could order this device. As I was frantically hitting refresh on the Apple site, only to see that it wasn't going through, I remembered, wait a minute, there's an Apple Store app on my phone. Jumped on that, and fortunately I was able to order it, and it came through in the first wave. Had it delivered yesterday, September 21st. Thought to myself, if Apple is good enough to release a phone on my birthday, I'm going to be good enough to get it. So after a few hiccups, minor hiccups which you could expect with a launch of this size, the phone is here. So let's go through a couple of differences and observations on the phone. In this hand here I've got an iPhone 4. Here I've got my iPhone 5. When you put them together, you notice that the 5 is slightly taller. The 5 has a 4-inch display versus a 3.5-inch display. It's also noticeably lighter and also noticeably thinner. Okay, so if that whole size thing is an issue in terms of weight, you're going to be very happy with this. Quite frankly, I plan on throwing this into a case anyways, not necessarily an honor box, but a case nonetheless, and I'm not necessarily overly concerned about the weight aspect of it. In regards to display, the display is beautiful. I mean, we're still working with a Retina display, and nobody does a display better than Apple. I have a few friends who have Samsung phones, either the Galaxy or the Infuse, and while I do like the size of the screen, in terms of the pixelation, in terms of the clarity, nothing beats an iPhone Retina display. In regards to the speed, so of course this is an LTE phone, which is fantastic. However, let's get away from the advertising and let's cut to the chase. It's advertised the speeds up to 75 megabits per second. You're not going to get 75 megabits per second. It's a fantasy. However, you are going to get ridiculously fast speeds compared to what you're used to. So for example, I've taken out both the 4 and the 5, and I've tested their speed on the network. So if you look at the 4, you're looking at about 2, maybe 3 megabits per second in terms of download. Whereas with the 5, you're going to be noticing speeds of between 18 to 35 megabits per second. It's not the 75, but quite frankly, you give me an average of, like, let's say 25 megabits per second in terms of download speed, and I'll be very happy with that. I haven't noticed any sort of detrimental issues in terms of battery life. In terms of the A6 processing chip that's in the phone, I find the phone to be very fast. Now, Siri has been updated. So you 4S users, listen to this. If you've updated to OS 6, Siri's going to work the way that it was supposed to work, and even better with some extra enhancements. Me being a big sports guy, I can go onto my phone and let's play around with it. Give me 1 second as I get in here. Siri, what's the score of the Yankees game?
The Yankees Athletics game is tied at 5.
So that's pretty cool, because before you weren't able to search like that. Before with Siri you weren't able to do scores, and you can now. The other really cool thing too is before, in terms of geographic locations, you can actually do that with Siri, whereas before here in Canada you couldn't. So you could say things like, Siri, I feel like having a Big Mac. Is there a McDonald's close by?
I couldn't find any restaurants whose reviews mention Big Mac.
Siri, I want to go to McDonald's. What are you doing to me? Is there a McDonald's close by or not?
I found 15 restaurants. Tap the one you want directions to.
So Siri now has given me a list of different McDonald's in the area. So let's find something else. Let's find a staple of Canadian cuisine. Siri, where's the nearest Tim Hortons?
I found 5 restaurants matching Tim Hortons. 2 of them are fairly close to you. I've sorted them by distance.
So then Siri gives me a listing of all of the Tim Hortons that are close by. Now the other things that I like about Siri is that you can also use Siri to send a tweet. You can use Siri to send Facebook updates. You can even use Siri to text. Perhaps you could have done these things before, I'm not necessarily sure. I think there have been some enhancements, but Siri is absolutely phenomenal. You really don't have to text on Siri anymore. You can even get Siri to open up apps for you. So, let's see. Siri, can you open up the App Store? So now it's loading, and you can see that Siri is now opening up the App Store on my phone. So with your voice, Siri will open up apps for you. Regardless of what apps you have on your phone, Siri will open them up for you. So that's pretty cool as well. And again, but that goes with the software. In terms of the phone itself, like I said, it's a much quicker phone. The LTE is absolutely fantastic. I do a lot of streaming myself, either watching sports or plugging into my Sling box, so I think that's fantastic. If you've never had an iPhone before and you're picking up the iPhone 5 for the first time, I think you're going to love it. If you've had a 3GS or a 4 and you're picking it up, I think you're going to love it as well. If you have a 4S, I think you're really going to like the phone. Siri for me is a really big deal because it's new to me. But you know what? The LTE speed's also new to me, as well as the display. So if you're somebody who likes watching movies or different videos on your phone, YouTube or what have you, and you like a bigger screen size, you're really going to like this phone. So at the end of the day, do I think you should go out and get the iPhone 5? Absolutely. I think the iPhone 5, after seeing them all, is by far the best that Apple has made. Now I know that's such a cliche because every time a new iPhone comes out, that's what people say. It's the best that's ever made. But I didn't say that about the 4S. When the 4S came out, I thought to myself, okay, Apple needed to put a product to the market, so this was the best they could do. If you have a 4, stay with a 4. Well, I have a 4 and I ran to the 5 because I think the 5 is fantastic. I'm not knocking the 4S. I think the 4S is a very good phone if you have it, but if you do have it, hold on to it and see what comes next year. Remember, upgrade every 2. But this, for my money, is by far the best iPhone that Apple's made. I'm extremely impressed with it, and I think you would be too. Before you jump into it, feel free to go to your nearest electronics store, pick it up and play around with it, or go to an Apple store and play around with it. I think you'll really like it. As always, you can follow me on Twitter at CFL_fan, or you can follow me on Facebook on my Facebook page at facebook.com/WhittyWhittier. Thank you so much for taking the time to enjoy my blog. Hope you're enjoying this. Hope you get a chance to enjoy this new iPhone as much as I do. It's interesting. The whole Samsung versus iPhone debate is going back and forth. You know, quite frankly, I'm an iPhone guy. I've got iPhones, iPads, Apple TV. I love their products. And you know what? With Apple, with Apple Store and iTunes Store gift cards going on sale every other week, I really have no reason not to get them and to get even more invested. I hope you guys like this phone and have a chance to check it out. And thanks so much for checking out this blog. Have a great day.